we've got to talk about Ilhan Omar once again because we've got some more news. Yeah, it is getting worse by the day for Ilhan Omar. And first thing we got to talk about is something very, very interesting that not a lot of people are actually speaking about, right? Not too many people are talking about this. Obviously, they're speaking about the Somalian fraud, which seems to be tied to. It's quite interesting how you go from nothing to a lot of something. But then we also have to get into what Tom Homan recently had to say about Ilhan Omar. And then we have to get into Democrats actually ditching Ilhan Omar, which is quite interesting considering that Democrats typically stick together. They all say the same things. You know, we've heard that before, all repeating the same lines. But now that seems to be breaking for Ilhan Omar. So with that being said, let's dive in.
So we'll ask again, where did Ilhan Omar get all that darn money from? Let's go through it. When she first ran for Congress in 2018, she was married to a Somalian man named Ahmed Nur Said Elmi, and she had a net worth of approximately $65,000. Not a ton of money, but $65,000. By 2020, a whole 2 years later, Ilhan had already divorced and remarried another Somalian man by the name of Ahmed Aladizian Herzi, and her net worth was still right around $65,000. Yet just 4 years later, she was divorced and remarried again for a third or perhaps a fourth time. We don't know for sure because Ilhan Omar likely married her brother at one point to get him into this country illegally when she came here from Somalia, which, by the way, is a federal crime, and she's serving in Congress. And nobody talks about this. So by 2024, Ilhan's married to a new person, a white guy named Tim. There's Tim Minette. And Tim is not a rich man, but now he is. Tim's rich now because somehow over the course of the last 3 years, Ilhan Omar's net worth has skyrocketed to over $30 million and counting, meaning she went from having right around $65,000 to $30 million in 3 years. Think about that. Powerball drawing is tonight. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Ilhan Omar did not win the lottery. Bernie Madoff was cheating, and he still wasn't doing that well. That is a 46,000% increase in less than 3 years. Now, how do you suppose that happened? Do you really expect us all to believe that she just played the stock market like she's got a great investor and they just got kind of lucky over the course of the Biden presidency? And why are we the only ones asking these questions tonight? So once again, where did Ilhan Omar get all that money, and why is she trying to make Americans feel bad for Somalian criminals?
Yeah, quite interesting, isn't it? Quite interesting. 60,000 to 30 million. How in the world do you do that? I wonder. You know, especially considering all of the fraud that's now coming out of Minnesota. I wonder if somebody got some kickbacks. Okay, yeah. We connected. We on the same line. Okay, we thinking the same thing. All right. Now, I want to get into this clip of some Somalians actually speaking about Ilhan Omar and what it's like to actually tell the truth about her in the Somalian community. Check it out.
In an obtained Facebook Live video from August 18, 2016, a woman identified as the Associate Chair of the Somali American Caucus speaks. And in translation, she states in plain terms that any Somali that talks about Omar's personal life, including marriage discrepancies, is an enemy of the Somali community. Credible sources in the Somali community have stepped forward and provided Alpha News with information in exchange for anonymity, along with members of the 2003 class have also identified Elmi's father as
Nur Said Elmi Mohammed, the same man who calls himself father to Ilhan Omar.
Interesting how that works. If a Somalian speaks the truth about what's really happening with Ilhan Omar, they're now an enemy. Interesting. To go as far as making someone an enemy simply because they're telling the truth tells me that somebody's the cash cow for a lot of people. This is what it tells me. Let me know if you agree, all right? Let me know if you agree. Now, Tom Homan recently had something to say about Ilhan Omar, and here's that.
The Border Czar, Tom Homan, joins us tonight to talk about Minnesota as well as a number of other issues. And, sir, it's good to have you back on the show. Trump mentioning the Daily Mail reporting from 2020 that Ilhan Omar married her brother to get into the country. This was last week. Take a listen.
Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan Omar, who they say married her brother. It's a fraud.
Calls that a fraud. It's a story that has never been successfully refuted, even though it's now a 5-year-old story. That's clearly a deportable offense. Is there an investigation into that?
You know, I just got advised by a fraud investigator the other day on that. I asked the question, who reviewed the file, and says that there was immigration fraud involved. The statute of limitations became an issue in the last 4 years when this was first brought up. Who was president? Who ran DOJ? So pulling the records now, pulling the files, and we're looking at it. But this fraud investigator, who I know personally, one of the best fraud investigators in HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, said there's no doubt he reviewed the file. So I'm running that down this week, matter of fact, and we'll see.
It's tremendous that, I mean, and according to the Secretary, Kristi Noem of DHS, she said nearly 50% of the visas are fraudulent in this community. I mean, that would mean that half the Somali refugees are here in some way illegally. What's going to happen? Is something's actually going to happen? Are there going to be people stripped of their visas, deported? Are we going to see that?
Absolutely. I mean, those days are over. Thank God President Trump's in the White House. We're going to look at all of them. I mean, we're going to look at those here illegally, of course. We're going to look at those here under a visa or some sort of, immigration process that are criminals. We're going to look at the national security threats. But those who came through a process that weren't properly vetted, who didn't provide documentation, who slipped through the Biden's weak processes on, giving visas and temporary, whether student visas or visitors visas or whatever. We're going the whole gamut. President Trump has instructed us go down.
Yeah, so Ilhan Omar very well may get deported for fraud. He's tracking it down, and it may happen. Now, we shall see. We shall see. It will be a tall task. You can bet your bottom dollar that Democrats will put up a fight. Lawyers will get involved. There will be all types of liberal judges saying they can't do it, right? There'll be all types of mess. But it's possible. It's on the table. It's not off the table. It's there. So we may be seeing Ilhan Omar get deported. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Now, I want to get into a guy by the name of Don Samuels, who used to be a councilman in Minneapolis and a Democrat, of course. I want you to take a listen to what he had to say about Ilhan Omar, because I think this says a lot, especially considering the conversation that we had yesterday about Indiana and Republicans in Indiana and how they went against Trump. And even one of you said it in the comments of that video. It's frustrating how Democrats always stick together, no matter what. They always stick together. They're all repeating the same thing. They always stick together, while Republicans, oftentimes, we kind of branch out and kind of do our own things a lot of the times. And it's frustrating, especially when it's big issues. And so to see a Democrat openly say what Don Samuels is about to say is very, very, very noteworthy, because you almost never see anything like this. Check it out.
Minnesota's 5th Congressional District. And we called together this press conference in the wake of yesterday's article in the Minnesota Reformer about my opponent, Representative Omar. She paid her husband, Tim Minette, $3 million of campaign money. And the way her time in office has given his business access and credibility, as they've misappropriated more than $1 million in money from South Dakota investors. They left workers unpaid and found the funds frozen by the Office of Foreign Assets, control the U.S. Treasury Department in charge of enforcing sanctions. Unfortunately, this story is just the latest scandal in a string of new stories about Representative Omar that narrow the focus on her and bring us further from the type of progress our district and our country needs around issues that affect the lives of our neighbors. Representative Omar has used her 3 terms in Congress, what many would consider the opportunity and honor of a lifetime, to divide our community and enrich herself in the process. Minnesota Reformer reporter Max Nestorak's article mentions at least 3 of the businesses that Tim Minette and his partner Will Haler started. The first was their political consultancy, which received an unprecedented sum of money from Representative Omar's 2020 race, where she raked in millions of small dollar contributions from across the country during the election cycle. $3 million was spent with E Street, and a large portion of that money went directly back into her own household. After that, Tim Minette and his business partner, Will Haler, started a winery, a decision made when one of their marketing clients apparently offered them grapes in lieu of money. The winery left its workers unpaid and is currently being sued for breach of contract, a bizarre arrangement where they agreed to return an investment of $300,000 with a return of $900,000 just 18 months later.
So, once again, when you have someone openly criticizing another Democrat, the way you just heard right there, in any way, shape, or form, I always think it's noteworthy because you don't see it. It does not happen. Even, for example, even with all of the rumors, right, about the AOC versus Chuck Schumer, have you ever heard AOC say anything about it? We all know. We see it, right? But she's never said it. She's never said, yeah, F Chuck Schumer, I'm taking his spot. No, never seen it. Or Chuck Schumer's cricket, blah, 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 he's pathetic, nothing. So when you see something like this, I always think it is very, very noteworthy. Something to stash in the Rolodex of Democrat memories, right? Because this may come back to be the straw that broke the camel's back, right? The beginning of the end, so to speak, when one Democrat broke rank and spoke negatively about another Democrat. Very, very noteworthy in my humble opinion. But as always, y'all get in the comments. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions about all of this. I do think that we could really see the beginning of the end right here for Ilhan Omar. Not only just being in Congress, but being an American citizen. What do you guys think? Let me know. If it's going to happen at any point, it is going to happen under the Trump administration because Trump is not playing around. He's not playing any games. Now, of course, like I said, he's going to face a lot of pushback here, there, everywhere. We expect that. We expect that all the way through 28, okay? Once they're finally demoralized after the 28 election, all of this will subside. Now, we got to make it there. We got to do what we're supposed to do in the midterms. Not only just defeating Democrats, but also making sure Rhino primary opponents beat the Rhinos, okay? We got to make sure their opponents win. So, yeah, I like I said, I fully expect us to do that, and I fully expect us to win in 28. So, the future's looking bright. But right now, we got a couple patches to get through. So, we'll see. We'll see. Y'all let me know your thoughts and your opinions in the comments. Stay safe out there. Peace and love. I'm out.